Hi guys, the job of the media is to hold those in power to account. Now that doesn't mean that they can't have fun with a politician, but it's important that whatever is said about policy, it's correct and it's scrutinised. Nick Robinson sat down with the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, for a bit of a chinwag, which you'll see was a tad embarrassing. But that wasn't the worst part. Reeves and the journalist compared her job in the Treasury to that of a household budget, which is not just stupid, but it sends the completely wrong message to the public. Have a listen to this.
You said last time you were on Political Thinking that your mum kept every receipt because she wanted to check that every single penny added up.
It wasn't just because she wanted to check, she needed to check. We didn't have loads of money, we weren't poor. My mum was a primary school teacher, as I said. My parents split up when I was at primary school, so we didn't have loads of money. And so she needed to make sure that everything that she was spending, she could afford. And I remember that very vividly, her sitting at the kitchen table with the receipts, and she kept them all, and her bank statements, and ticked them off to make sure she knew she wasn't overspending compared with the income that she had coming in.
I'm told that you used to, I don't know if you still do as Chancellor, but as Shadow Chancellor, you bring your lunch in a Tupperware. If there were leftover pastries from a meeting, you'd save the pastries because you didn't want waste. Is that the person that the Iron Chancellor Rachel Reeves has become?
I still do that.
You still bring your lunch in a Tupperware?
Not every day, but whenever I can, I do that.
Do you make it, or do you get one of the family to make it?
I make it. A couple of days ago, we had a breakfast, and there were some leftover pastries. So I'm not sure if the health secretary would approve of this, but I had a pastry for breakfast and a pastry for lunch. So I think that's good value for money. It might not be very good for my waistline.
It makes the numbers add up.
Oh my goodness. Okay. You cannot compare what the Treasury is doing, what the Chancellor of the Exchequer is doing, with a household income. Now, this is actually here are two journalists speaking to each other about such a scenario.
The moment.
Now, this isn't like household debt. This isn't like running an overdraft. Just how important is it that we pay this off?
That's a really important point. We've been talking like it is like household debt for a very long time, but when you're a homeowner, what you worry about with debt is what's going to happen if you can't pay it. The bailiffs might come round. You might have a repossession, but it's not like that for the government, not least because of who they're borrowing it from. And if you look at that, who do we actually owe this money to? Well, of the money borrowed since the pandemic, actually 92% of it is owed to the Bank of England. Now, that's really ultimately another branch of government. So if you're borrowing from yourself, as you are with government finances, you have a much more patient creditor who's not going to be banging on your door too soon.
So the problem here is not so much Rachel Reeves selling this idea, and she's done it before. She sold this idea that, running the government is a bit like running a household. And we've heard this argument before, not just from Rachel Reeves, but from other politicians. And it's about creating a scenario in people's minds that, well, the government need to balance the books. They need to balance the money that comes in and the money that goes out. But it's not the case. It's not like that. And journalists like this guy know that. So why is he running with this story? Why is he not challenging the Chancellor on this narrative? His job is to hold these people to account. His job is to push back on this type of tripe, on this type of rubbish. But by not doing so, he allows this message to filter down into the minds of the public where they're convinced, well, the government need to balance the books, or we can't borrow any more money because, it's like a household. I get into debt. If I don't pay my debts, as was pointed out in the other example, someone will come knocking on the door and I'll lose my home. That's not how it works for the state. And the fact that the journalists and the BBC are not educating the public on this is extremely concerning. Their job is to hold these people to account. Yes, they can have a bit of fun, but it has to be about challenging narratives that make no sense economically. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.